What's going on, everybody? Back at it with another New York Giants video, and in this video, I'll be recapping the Giants Week 12 Thanksgiving loss to the Dallas Cowboys back on Thursday. But before I get into that, folks, your friendly neighborhood reminder to check us out on all of our social media platforms on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Big Blue Avenue. Appreciate all the support that we've gotten. And of course, our proud sponsor, BetUS. You can sign up with our promo code below there at Join125. Again, that is Join125. It's America's #1 favorite sports book. If you like your sports betting, you know the place to go. That is BetUS. So, getting into some Week 12 recap here. Thanksgiving was a tough day to be a New York Giants fan. We knew Dallas lost last year on Thanksgiving, so they were going to come in energized with an extra boost of energy, and they did that. They beat New York 28-20. Dallas has now won 11 of their last 12 games against Big Blue, and they've swept the season series for the second consecutive year. Last time Giants beat Dallas was Week 17 of 2020. The Giants were battling for a playoff spot with the Washington football team. Giants now fall to third place in the NFC East, a full game behind Dallas in the standings. So Dallas is 8-3. The Giants are 7-4. Now, I think the Giants exceeded expectations in this game, though. They covered the spread, which was nice. Obviously, you want to see a win. They were up 13-7 at halftime. I thought the Giants did a lot of things right in that first half to get them to that point, in particular, forcing 2 Dak Prescott interceptions. However, the second half was a different story where they gave up 21 unanswered points that cost them the game. They were down 28-13 in a hurry. People were asking me, Wink Martindale, too aggressive, blitzing a little too much. Maybe you could argue that with the soft secondary that the Giants had, because Wink's scheme is designed to have an excellent secondary, and everyone's hurt in the secondary. No Adoree Jackson, no Fabian Moreau, no Xavier McKinney. Julian Love is the only remaining starter of the original 4 to 5 guys from the start of the season in that secondary. So now, when I look back at this game, I think the Giants do deserve praise for hanging in with the Cowboys for a majority of this game. Giants now have 10 days off before the Washington game. Really, really big divisional game. The Giants are 0-2 in the NFC East, so this game is huge. If the Giants want to stick around in the playoff standings, they have to beat Washington, who is the second hottest team in the NFC right now. They've won their last 3 games. They're 6-1 over the last 7 weeks. Taylor Heineke, I believe he's 5-1 as the starting quarterback. So it'll be a challenge for sure. This Washington team is starting to remind me of 2020 when they got hot. But the Giants, historically, they own Washington. That's good news. But back to the Dallas game first. Outgained 400 to 300 in yards, and the Giants just 3 for 11 on third down compared to Dallas, who was 7 of 11. Dallas dominated TOP. They stayed on the field for over 34 minutes of the game. You're more likely to win when you stay on the football field longer. And the 430 yards of total offense to Dallas gained was the second highest total given up by a Giants team this season. Another issue in this game that I didn't like, we couldn't stop the run. Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams do everything they can, but that Dallas offensive line is tough. You got bad boys up there like Zach Martin, who've been doing this for years. Dallas rushed for 169 yards. That was the third highest total given up by a Giants defense this year. The first, also Dallas in Week 3, 176 yards. Going into player stats for this game, I thought Daniel Jones was fine. 21 of 35. He threw for 228 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks, rating of 88.8. Jones now has not thrown a pick in 7 of his last 8 games. I think he's been fine with what he's had to work with. Again, he's throwing to guys that you've never even heard of before. Again, the Giants couldn't run the football well. They were without 3 starters on their offensive line, which was a huge key to this game. Andrew Thomas was dealing with an illness. He started. Jack Anderson got his first NFL start, played left guard. Nick Gates at center. Mark Lewinsky at right guard. He's been starting there all year. And then Tyre Phillips, who was a game-time decision at right tackle for Big Blue. So no Evan Neal, no Ben Bredesen, no Josh Azudu, no Shane Lemieux, no John Feliciano. You're without 5 guys on that offensive line that are huge depth pieces for you. So it was really tough for Barkley to get it going. He only rushed for 39 yards, and again, he's dealing with a shoulder injury himself. Barkley did score a touchdown. Brightwell had 31 yards on the ground as well on 5 carries, and it really hurt the receiving game as well. The Giants set up their pass through the running game. Jones likes to run a lot of play action, which we saw early in this game. Jones was throwing the ball a lot because we know the last time the Giants ran the ball a lot early in the Dallas game, and that led to Jones running for his life later on in the game, which he wasn't doing as much of this time around. But when your leading receiver is Richie James, 5 catches for 41 yards, that's a problem. It's a big problem. Darius Slayton had a nice 44-yard touchdown catch, 3rd longest by a Giant this season. They don't throw the ball down the field too much, and I keep telling people this. It's not because of Jones. Jones is one of the most accurate deep ball passers in the league. The problem is the offensive line, much better at run blocking and pass blocking. And when you have 3 starters out and when you have no receiving core all year, I mean, Kenny Golladay was nowhere to be found on Thanksgiving. What are you supposed to do as an offense? Are you going to throw the ball down the field to a guy like Isaiah Hodgins or Darius Slayton against Trayvon Diggs more than maybe 1 or 2 times a game? Probably not. That's not a recipe for success. But moving on from that, the Giants starting offensive line, I mentioned that. Nick Gates had a fantastic game. I think he needs to get more reps. I'd prefer to see him start at center this upcoming week. If Feliciano is back, I would push Gates out to left guard. He needs to be in that starting lineup. Just allowed 1 pressure in over 64 snaps. And this is a guy who missed over 400 days with a gruesome leg injury. He had to have 7 surgeries on that leg. People thought he was going to get an injury settlement and retire. And now he's back. Andrew Thomas battling an illness, not using that as an excuse, though. Unfortunately for him, he gave up his first 2 sacks of the season. Both were to Micah Parsons, though, so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt there. He's been an all-pro all season long. Hopefully he gets back to his regular form after this extended rest. I mentioned Jack Anderson, and defensively, Love had 10 tackles, 83 tackles on the year. He's been outstanding. Rodarius Williams also had 2 passes defended on top of his pick. Darnay Holmes had 2 himself, although he was a penalty flag machine once again. By the way, Jake Ferguson, outstanding hurdle in that game. I don't know how he did that. But Leonard Williams, 6 tackles, 2 for loss. And rookie linebacker Micah McFadden, people don't talk about this guy enough, right? Saying, oh, he's just another linebacker. He's just another guy. Tate Crowder's sitting on the bench because of this guy. McFadden had 4 tackles, 2 in the backfield, 5th-round rookie out of Indiana. We know Crowder's a huge liability in pass coverage, but McFadden is probably not as good as Jalen Smith is in pass coverage, but he's definitely better than Tate Crowder. And keep in mind, Jalen Smith's a 7-year pro. Mike McFadden's a rookie. Jalen Smith is another guy I want to talk about. 10 tackles as well. He's been outstanding, sideline to sideline linebacker. And how about the reserves? Cordell Flott, Jason Pinnock, and Nick McLeod all getting starting reps in this game. McLeod and Flott were the starting corners. And then I believe Belton started with Love in the secondary. Pinnock saw a lot of reps. But the biggest standout to me was Kayvon Thibodeaux. Not enough can be said about this guy. 9 quarterback pressures out. Unbelievable number. 5 QB hits, 4 hurries. He was deprived of a sack. I mean, a rookie like that, when you don't have much of a resume, and again, it's a gray area that officials have introduced into this league. Some players will get the calls, some players won't. And I'm never one to blame the refs, and I'm not going to here because the Giants did deserve to lose this game, unfortunately. But there was at least 2 missed calls on Kayvon Thibodeaux in this game, and that's me being generous. He was getting held like a madman in that game. He should have had at least 1 sack to his record, but sack total doesn't indicate his play and how well he's been doing. You really dig into the statistics. Here it is, folks. 9 pressures on 21 pass rushing snaps. That's almost half. 43% pressure rate. Played on 73% of the defensive snaps this week. Had an 87.2 Pro Football Focus grade. And he leads all rookies with a 14% pass rush win rate. Unfortunately, the Giants could not get to the quarterback. It led to another big performance for CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb had 106 receiving yards, second Giants opponent to reach that century mark this season. The other was Baltimore Ravens tight end Mark Andrews, who also had 106 yards. We knew last time out, week 3, they struggled against Lamb then with Adoree Jackson covering him. You only knew what was going to happen in this game and probably then some. CeeDee Lamb was torching the Giants secondary. So I was not surprised that he had this good of a football game. One player who did not play in the week 3 matchup was Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz scored 2 touchdowns in this game for Dallas, a 15-yard and 6-yard touchdown reception from Dak Prescott, who also did not play in the week 3 game. Schultz is the first tight end to haul in 2 touchdown catches against the Giants since December 9th, 2019. That was Zach Ertz. Schultz also joined Titans Dontrell Hilliard as the only 2 receivers with 2 touchdown receptions against the Giants this season. And when I look at this game overall, Brian Daboll, he was mad. There was one play on Tyre Phillips that I wanted to address, the illegal man downfield, right? It shouldn't have been called, and here's why. Was he a step in front of the line of scrimmage? Maybe. You couldn't tell, but had no impact on the play. It's not like he was 5 yards down the field, and people will argue, whether it's 5 yards down the field or a foot down the field, you have to call it. Unfortunately, the officials have introduced a very big gray area of calls into this league where it's not consistent, where a few weeks ago in the Minnesota game, we saw a lineman 3 yards down the field, and they don't call it. So if they're calling Tyre Phillips, who was maybe half a step downfield that prevented a Giants touchdown to Isaiah Hodgins, it's not a good look. It's not a good look. And I don't blame Daboll for getting mad at the officials. I really don't. The inconsistency of the officiating has to change. It's either a penalty or it's not. You can't be saying, we didn't call it this then, so we're going to come back and call it this here to make up for it. You can't do that. Special teams quickly here. Graham Gano is tied now with Aldrick Rosas, the Giants record for the longest field goal in Giants history. He had a 57-yarder in this game. Great comeback for him this week after some issues in the game last week against Detroit. Gano is now the Giants' all-time leader with 17 50-plus yard field goals. He hasn't even been on the team for 3 full years yet. Incredible, right? How the game has changed. The 50 is starting to become the new 40 when it comes to field goals for the really good kickers. People don't talk about that enough, how the special teams is changing in the NFL. We're seeing more 60-yarders being attempted and made. So, that's a good thing for kickers. So, Graham Gano has been a good job for the Giants. And Dak Prescott, again, I'm very confident about him and where he's taking this team. With him in full effect, they have a very talented roster. So if I'm the Giants, I'm not too shook by this loss. You lost by 8 points with half a roster. Half of the starters were out, guys. It's not time to push the panic button yet. If you lose at home to Washington after 10 days rest, then you push the panic button. But not yet. Also, the Giants just historically aren't too great against Dallas since the turn of the century. Since starting 0-2 against them in his rookie year, Cowboys QB Dak Prescott has beaten the Giants in 10 consecutive starts. So the Giants won't get another crack at the Cowboys, at least in the regular season. We'll see about the playoffs. Both teams likely to end up as wild cards if both hold on, of course, unless anything astronomical happens in the NFC East. But right now, all 4 teams in the NFC East are slated to make the playoffs if the standings hold. That's the key word, if. So Giants' final 6 games, I'm looking at Washington twice, Philly twice. 4 of their final 6 games are NFC East games. And then you have Minnesota and Indianapolis. And I can guarantee you it'll be very, very fortunate that the Giants keep the Minnesota game close in Minnesota with the way the Vikings are playing. I mean, they score points at an insane rate. Their defensive line is good. The Colts, I think that's a win. The Giants historically are really good against Washington. So I think for the Giants, you have to win at least 3 of these final 6 games to make the playoffs. I don't think 9-8 will get them in. I think 10-7 will as a 7th seed. I do think 11-6 is the Giants' ceiling at this point, sitting here at 7-4. I do think the Giants will lose at least 1 game to the Eagles, and I think they will lose the Vikings game. Ideally, I'd like to see them sweep Washington, split the Eagles, and beat the Colts. I would be satisfied with that. Obviously, I want them to win all 6, but I'm trying to be realistic here. Worst case scenario, they lose both to Washington, they lose both to Philly, and their only win for the rest of the year is against the Indianapolis Colts. They finish 8-9, and that's probably not enough to get you into the playoffs in the NFC, unfortunately, with the way the season's going. So I think worst case scenario, 8-9. Best case scenario, 11-6. My realistic prediction is that the Giants will finish the season 10-7 and be or 6-7 in the NFC playoffs. But folks, Giants lose to Dallas again. Tough loss on Thanksgiving. Couple good standout players. Giants do have reinforcements coming on the way. Remember to check us out on all of our social media, on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube if you like what you watch here at Big Blue Avenue. Appreciate all the support. I'll do a film review in the coming days of both the top Week 11 plays and Week 12 as well, since we had a short week last week due to Thanksgiving. We'll have our normal live stream back on Thursday night. We'll talk about our key takeaways of this game and more. Folks, without further ado, let's go Big Blue.